actually only 16 years old and still has a few top 100 finishes. You know, that seems like a pretty competitive player, but mentions that ladder's pretty stress relieving for most of the part and considers himself to be kind of a casual tryhard.
Yeah, kind of funny term there, but definitely a guy that cares about winning, but, you know, it's not quite, you know, everything
It's
to
not
him.
the #1 priority.
Yeah, so he's definitely, what we've seen from him is favoring those control decks, and from the side of DarkGamin, we saw a very aggressive lineup, Shaman, Rogue, and Zoo. And so we're basically going to be seeing just a clash of styles here, starting out with Shaman versus Patron, and kind of looking at the stats, traditionally this has been favored in the past few days for the Patron Warrior deck.
And as you mentioned, Prelude, he's playing a control warrior strategy. I mean, we have seen almost entirely Patron warrior throughout this event, and he's got control warrior. Get the game board up as quickly.
Completely forgot about that, actually. Yeah, we've seen Prelude favor
Abusive Sergeant and turn to Flame Juggler. I don't know why. I wanted to call it Flame Waker, and I was like, that's Flame Faker. I was like, that's not Flame Waker. Good hand. It's mirrored at the moment. We'll get that fixed for you guys as quickly as we can. But this has been a pretty fantastic start for DarkGamin with turn 1 Abusive Sergeant and turn 2 Flame Juggler. I don't know why. I wanted to call it Flame Waker, and I was like, that's Flame Faker. I was like, that's not Flame Waker.
Yeah, it's definitely an aggressive start from the Shaman, and Tuskar Totemic is a card you were talking to me a lot about. This card actually got buffed indirectly with the standard rotation. Vitality Totem is no longer standard legal, so you can no longer get that. Now, that seems like an okay one, but that increases the odds you get Mana Tide or Totem Golem to 2 out of 7, up from 2 out of 8.
Yeah, or Flame Tongue Totem for that matter.
I mean, true.
You need the right board state for Flame Tongue Totem, but I'll tell you what, having just a pseudo priority kill on board is a big deal.
Yeah, and just the fact that it's ever so slightly more reliable. 1 out of 7 to get any individual totem you want rather than 1 out of 8. So going to be seeing Spell Power more, going to be seeing Flame Tongue, Mana Tide, and Totem Golem more. Yeah. And really, I mean, we're not quite at the turns where Prelude can deal with this board. He's waiting to get to that Brawl turn. Going to hold on to coin for that, obviously. But we might have to see that come out immediately.
Big draw from DarkGamin. He's going to go
He's going to go straight into it?
You know what? I've been in this situation before, and
you make him have it?
You and I both share a similar philosophy here, which is sometimes your opponent just doesn't have the big board.
Honestly, yeah, it's gonna be bad. I mean, if the Brawl pops out and a 2-2 or the 0-2 survive, but even if just the 3-2 were to survive, and he's not even going to go for the Brawl.
You know what, this is actually, I really like this plan here from Prelude. Answer this effectively, pick up some extra cards. Your opponent is so likely to extend when you make this kind of play. I mean, they're going to play the rest of their hand.
Especially because you're almost, you know, you're telegraphing you don't have that Brawl. You get to hold on to the coin, like you said, make your opponent extend, which at this point, I feel like for DarkGamin, it's a spot where you need to realize, okay, how much do I need to extend? I've got a strong hand. I've got a lot of strong pressure. Maybe I just go for a value hero power like Hunter or Warlock and try to get things going.
I mean, the Warlock hero power is really tempting, but with that Doomhammer in hand, that shapeshift, looking mighty good right now.
I know in the old version, with Crackles at least, Life Tap seemed a lot better against Control Warrior. You get so much value out of it. He's going to pass up on that value for now. Walk right into the Brawl, but how bad could it really be?
Prelude's already holding the Brawl. And what a turn for him. You know, the other thing, too, is foregoing the Brawl last turn allowed him to save the coin. And also avoided that disastrous situation with the 7-7 wins.
0-2.
Oh, 0 power. Survives. Oh. It does have Doomhammer, though. So, I mean, a little bit of push available here. But
I think he's thinking about maybe not Doomhammer, but yeah, just going to go for it. Push this damage. And Prelude needs to put a stop to this. He's got the Bloodhoof Brave to taunt up. Falling a bit low, but without the Crackles, the burn damage in DarkGamin's deck is a lot lower.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you just favor armor up here. Not really any reason to coin the bash.
Yeah.
I think at 17, he's got to be feeling comfortable.
Lava Burst
now, the life
really
tap
good.
does put a bit of a clock here.
Yeah. Life tap is almost inevitability.
Yeah.
It's going to be offering so many cards to DarkGamin that eventually he's going to find the burn spells to end the game. And with Warrior missing out on Shield Maiden now, that's a lot of armor gain out the window.
Yeah, I mean, in order to play with Shield Maiden, you got to put in a bunch of Cthulhu cards. With that Ancient one, which is still pretty good. I mean, I've pulled that card off a couple times. And 10
I was
armor's
playing
no joke.
some against Maiden, their Cthulhu's just not buffed enough.
It's happened to me a couple times too.
Definitely some issues with that strategy, but wouldn't be surprised to see a life tap come out from DarkGamin here. I feel like he's going to want to clear through the Brave. He could just go for Flame Wreath Faceless and try and challenge it, but that strategy definitely has some risks to it.
Yeah, I think overall I like the Flame Wreath Faceless. You've seen it execute. You know that Big Game Hunter is a lot less likely.
Yeah.
Just going to take the 7 damage and run over it with this Argent Horse Rider. I mean, I can't blame him for that either. I mean, DarkGamin's life total is clearly a resource in this game. He's the player who's the aggressor,
right?
And at a certain point, he'll have to worry about his life. He's the player who's the aggressor,
right?
And at a certain point, he'll have to worry about his life total, but we're not at that time just yet. So use what you can to try to gain that advantage. But it feels like Prelude's just going to squash every single attack from DarkGamin for quite a while.
Yeah, and I wonder how much merit there is to when he can get this Gore Howl online, because not only does it clear up minions, it's threatening some damage on the backswing. You can set up that lethal with the Grom, maybe with the Rag. It looks like, honestly, he's trying to set up this Rag to connect to face eventually. Getting some clears down, putting an Acolyte down to maybe answer that Totem before it can buff up any of DarkGamin's spells.
Yeah, Morgan Infiltrator, a bit of a help now. I mean, glad to see the Revenge gone when you draw that card.
So,
and I'm thinking this is probably 2 minions life tap, or like maybe 3 minions.
I think you can afford to be slow here, but DarkGamin, we might just see a full load, thinking 1 brawl's gone.
Yeah, I like the play honestly, but it's just you're running into the unfortunate situation. 2nd brawl is in hand for Prelude. This is going to look so good, and he draws shield block even to continue to pad his life total.
Yeah.
So even if the Flame Wreath Faceless lives here, he's got an answer to it.
So 2-1 going to survive. At the very least, it can't be answered. But DarkGamin's going to need a lot of help in this match now.
You can see the look on his face too, like, wow, 2 brawls. I mean, geez, Alou, that's a mighty clear you've got there. I mean, both Flame Wreath Faceless have been answered seemingly easy by Prelude.
So no real big threats going to come out of DarkGamin from now on. It's going to be a march of tiny minions.
Well, you say tiny. Totem Golem's still pretty sizable.
Yeah, and, I mean, you see him just forgoing this hero power, saying, I need to push.
And I totally agree with this at this point, too. I mean, your opponent's got a lot of cards in hand. You're going to have to get pressure on board.
He's going for the 2nd Doomhammer draw.
Yeah, I mean, I think he needs it at this point, honestly.
Yeah.
This is a good spot by DarkGamin. He needs to get damage in and needs it to be very efficient. 2nd Bloodhoof Brave.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, DarkGamin could have saved up for the Rockbiter draw, but instead deciding to go for that 2nd Doomhammer, recognizing he is not in a great spot in this game, and I think his spot just got a lot worse after this turn.
A good turn for Prelude. Clears all but that Morgan Infiltrator, and then coins out Bloodhoof Brave with 5 cards back behind in his hand.
Yep. Not much that efficiently answers this out of DarkGamin's hand. And, and immediately, we see the type of play he tried to go for just punished.
Yeah, I mean, I still agree with the play.
I do too. I mean,
he needed to draw the right sequence of cards in this situation, and unfortunately for him, it just didn't pan out that way. But Prelude was very patient in the early game, didn't overextend his removal just to handle cheap threats, just took some damage, got in a big brawl, got in the 2nd brawl. I mean, the 2nd brawl kind of almost locked things up, I'd say. This turn was kind of the nail in the coffin. I mean, DarkGamin, he can get past this, but look what he's expending to get past this point. The damage is going to start pouring on for Prelude pretty soon here.
Yeah, I mean, with Crackle being gone, the amount of damage that your opponent can burn you out with got a lot lower. I mean, Rockbiter doesn't pass Taunt. Lightning Bolt's only 3 damage. Lava Burst is the best burn spell they have now. So stabilizing at 15 seemed to work out fine for Prelude.
Yeah, but I think he's just going to end up passing here. If he finds a Doomhammer, maybe still a glimmer of hope. I'll tell you what, an Armor Smith back behind a Taunt is always a scary thought. And we may even see just Grom here.
Yeah, I'm okay with Ragnaros.
Yeah, I mean, just either threat. I mean, just deal 8 damage. Seems to work.
Yep. And that is probably going to wrap things up. Don't think there's a Hex or anything in this deck from DarkGamin.
Yeah, 2nd Morgan Infiltrator is not going to be any help. And that's going to drop the game. Prelude takes a very convincing game number 1 with his Control Warrior. We've been seeing it perform for him so far very well this tournament. And we'll see what he has left in the pocket for this one, though. Warlock and Paladin, I believe both of those were control decks as well, if I remember correctly. And
now, I don't feel too, bad for DarkGamin here. I feel like Control Warrior was a deck that was likely to get a win against his aggressive lineup. Rogue not going to line up very well against Control Warrior, and also Zoo versus Control Warrior, pretty solid, but always sucks to fall down in game one, but definitely going to have a chance to bounce back.
We've seen plenty of comebacks in tournaments throughout the years, and I don't think DarkGamin's going to get down by this one at all. Again, kind of like you said, the Control Warrior is just such a good matchup, I think, versus aggressive lineup. As the aggro decks tend to get a little bit more refined, they have a stronger attack plan and sort of can understand the ebb and flow of the game a little bit better. But again, the loss of Crackle means the loss of a lot of damage that is direct to face. So some work to do if they want to clean those ones up. So still DarkGamin with Shaman, Rogue, and Warlock to work with. And against Warlock and Paladin, the Rogues looks a lot better now.
Oh, the Rogue is great now, yeah.
Yeah, and the Warlock, I would say even it's looking a lot better. I mean, just the fact that you're not going to have to face down 2 brawls. Before you had Nerubian Egg and Haunted Creeper, you left stuff on board and kept going. But now with 2 brawls out of the way, it doesn't look like he's got too much to fear going into one of these games.
Well, just kind of taking a look at our stats, we don't really have stats of Reno Warlock versus Zoo, but I would say that does tend to favor the Zoo. Going in Paladin versus Warlock, Warlock is Paladin's best matchup statistically this weekend at 58% for the Paladin. Pyromancer, Quality, Consecration, all the board clears, like you said, with no Egg, no Creeper now. It definitely got a lot better for the Paladin.
Yeah, I mean, Consecration always kind of been strong versus Zoo if they don't have those sustainable minions out. But something I'm looking at is the 3 drops from the Warlock deck now with Imp Gang Boss and Darkshire Councilman. Both of those live through Consecrate and deal quite a significant amount of damage in the face of those 2 cards.
Yep, and we do see the Rogue's going to come out right into Paladin. This is Paladin's worst matchup of the decks that are left. 33% for Paladin this weekend. I mean, what does Prelude need to find to stabilize this type of matchup?
Well, I think back to the old days of fighting with Paladin versus Miracle Rogue. And there's 2 cards that I remember that we always kept in our opening hands. Number 1 was Equality, and number 2 was True Silver Champion.
Yep.
The True Silver Champion helped fight the early pressure, but the Equality helped increase the odds that you found an answer to a stealth Gadget Zane Auctioneer. Both of those were very critical things in defeating this matchup. And since Gadget Zane Auctioneer is actually slowed down by a mana, it now costs 6 instead of 5 like it did back then, they have an extra turn to find that board sweep as well.
Yeah, and for Prelude, I think he's going to need to pick up that Equality clear because Gadget's in, Coin, Conceal, already in the hand for DarkGamin.
He's got to back it up too with that Zeril in hand. He'll find a lot of spells.
All the tools he's going to need, I think. And I mean, when you're in a Miracle Rogue match for your tournament life, it's got to feel good. Or not as tournament life, actually. These guys are still in the winner's bracket, but when you're fighting to win this tournament, it's got to feel good to have that Auctioneer, have Coin, and have Conceal.
Yeah. The True Silver Champion answers 3-3 pretty easily. I'll tell you what, though, this 4-drop used to not be in the decks back then. And anytime you find damage from this guy, I think it's a pretty welcome sight.
Yeah, that's a 3rd Cold Blood, essentially.
There's that Equality. You need something to go with it, though. So still has to find a board clear here, but has Corrupted Healbot, has that Infested Tauren to work with. So starting able to get his development moving just a little bit.
Yeah, the one thing we saw from Prelude's deck compared to some of the other N'Zoth Paladin decks was that he's got a lot of death rattles, so if he gets to N'Zoth, it's going to be good.
Yes. Infested Tauren is actually kind of an interesting option given that it's off.
Yeah.
Because when you play it, it tries to ensure that you have a taunt out, so it's less likely that you just die on the return swing.
Yeah, not a very powerful card on its own. I was talking to Firebat a bit about it. He was testing the Paladin deck, and he said he thinks one of it's pretty solid. Just to make sure when you expend your entire turn casting N'Zoth, you've got that small taunt to stay behind.
Quickly. So, going to be Elder Peacekeeper here, not
I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, Corrupted Healbot looked to be the obvious play that turn, I think. Just play your 5-on-5, True Silver down that 3-2. But instead decides to go for sort of a little weaker turn.
Maybe trying to pull some damage out of DarkGamin instead of just getting zapped.
Yeah, I mean, going into Cairn, how bad do you feel getting zapped, really, though? You're going to have to face that demon eventually. He does pick up the clear to use with that Equality. So we're going to have to see how much DarkGamin walks into that.
Yeah, I think I do like Cairn here.
Yeah. I'd go for it, especially because if your opponent does go for the Gadget Sand, unless they have the prep and the sap, that Cairn will be sticking, and that'll live through the equality clear should your opponent stealth their Gadget Sand.
You know, that being said, there is a poison set up on DarkGamin's side, so the Infest Tauren does still get value through that. Maybe that could have been a sap target at some point. I mean, just the fact that it's 2 bodies. I think the Cairn is just better.
Yeah, but you just really want to expend your mana when you can, I think.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the turn for DarkGamin too. I mean, you're looking at Gadget Stand, Coin, Conceal, Backstab.
He has a different play now. I mean, he could go for the more long-term value from the Auctioneer, knowing that it could be cleared immediately by equality. You could just go for the Tomb Pillager Sap. It looks like it's going to be that Auctioneer immediately.
It's just too hard to pass up. I mean, the other thing too is if you wait to go with Gadget Stand Auctioneer, gives your opponent more time to find those options. So the longer you wait, the more likely it is that it gets cleared in this spot too. So I actually like that he's going for it in this spot.
Yeah, could clear off that Cairn, but
I think he's in the business of sapping that bad boy.
Yeah, probably going to wait to sap it next turn. Just wanted to cycle the backstab this turn, but I can't see anything other than a quality clear.
Definitely not. Does pick up a second Auctioneer to back this one up though.
Yep.
So Prelude's
not much to go with it though.
Yes. Nevertheless, I mean, kind of as you mentioned now, the slower build, he picked up quite a bit of card economy from that Gadget Stand Auctioneer. I mean, it forced a lot of action.
Yeah.
Bought him a little bit of time. He's got more options in his hand.
The fact that the Cairn died for Prelude isn't really a bad thing. That means he safely has that kind of in the graveyard now for N'Zoth if he could draw it. Can't get sapped and leaves behind a 4/5, which is pretty good when you're fighting against rogue minions.
Yep. This is going to be a clear here for DarkGamin and get the Tomb Pillager on board. True Silver Champion, going to cause the demise of that Tomb Pillager, but we got an Auctioneer in here, and I think you're welcoming that coin right now.
Yeah, and for DarkGamin here, I think he's got the tools, and it's going to be like we always see. It's going to be about how well he can end this game with the resources he has. He's got plenty of them. He just needs to find a way to make this face damage connect and not lose to a card like Forbidden Healing.
Yep. You know, that's a good point to mention too. I mean, if he just kind of deals the damage over the course of 2 or 3 turns, Forbidden Healing can offset so much of that damage that got dealt. I mean, you're looking at Humility and Forbidden Healing for 18 going into turn 10. On a cold-blooded minion, that's a lot of life gain in 1 turn. So the Sylvanas, that's a pretty big sap target here for DarkGamin.
Yeah.
But no dagger set up, so it looks like he's just going to clear the Sylvanas. But again, every single time he uses damage to clear, that cuts into his ability to end the game.
Now what he's thinking here is that he wants to save this sap for Tyrion. Expects it to probably be there. Maybe even thinks Prelude's trying to bait out the sap before he slams down the Tyrion. And with only 1 sap, kind of see why he's playing a little safe here. Waiting for a better Auctioneer turn. Waiting for a better sap.
Ooze gets picked up. We didn't see that one yesterday.
Yeah, and the fact that we didn't see it is actually an interesting note because we saw Prelude on stream. Wouldn't be surprised if DarkGamin also saw him on stream and was kind of taking some notes knowing he's a future opponent. If he sits on a Deadly Poison Dagger and gets that Ooze, that is bad news.
Ooze or lose.
And for Prelude, I mean, I feel like it's, you know, you're praying to N'Zoth. Really hoping to pick that up soon. It's going to get a Cairn and a Sylvanas so far. And that's some immense value.
Eviscerate gets picked up, so it does have Blood Mage and Eviscerate, but again, that's the second Eviscerate at this point.
That's a lot of damage gone. I mean,
it's a lot.
He's got 2 Cold Bloods and he's got the Toxin for the kind of Blessing of Might effect, so that's at least 11.
Yeah,
he's not going to use this.
Yeah, I don't blame him for this either. I mean, using that much damage on a Corrupted Healbot does mean some bad things for you, and Ragnaros Lightlord gets picked up. This is looking like some great turns here for Prelude.
Almost certainly the play here. And he either draws a sap. I mean, it's hard to imagine a rogue just killing your Rag Lightlord. And also suddenly, Prelude's sort of pushing almost lethal damage. I mean, the Corrupted Healbot will heal for 8 when it dies, but you have to kill it.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the 6/6 body does force action at some point. Active base to ensure that heal for 8. Live, insect. God, I love Ragnaros Lightlord.
Pretty sweet card.
Yeah, so this is the Auctioneer turn here for DarkGamin. He's loaded up on spells.
Got to imagine probably sap. I mean, Ragnaros Lightlord does present immediate value, so it can just come back down and heal for 8 again later.
Yeah, this is a big problem for DarkGamin. I mean, he hasn't really had a ton of pressure going. This game does pick up a second
conceal is huge.
You know, we've seen a lot of players running one conceal in this event so far, but looks like he may even pass that up.
It's going to guarantee that he could get that Cold Blood down to connect for damage unless there's a second equality clear.
He's going to Deadly Poison here just to continue drawing cards.
Oh, he could just go for the Cold Blood now, but we haven't seen a Consecration, and we've only seen one Wild Pyro. I half expected him to just throw out the Eviscerate, clear out the Corrupted Heal bot, but...
Zero Poison Mind. That Toxin going to provide 4 extra damage. This is going to be Conceal.
Yep.
Prelude actually doesn't have...
in a preparation.
There's at least one more of those left in the deck as well. DarkGamin does not have the time to preparation right now, so he's going to hold on to it.
Rope it out. Yeah.
This is scary for Prelude all of a sudden. I mean, even at 30 life, you're a little bit terrified of this board.
Let's talk about what he knows is in the deck. He knows there's okay, first of all, there's 5 cards left and 2 preps left. He can cycle through everything and use everything.
Yeah.
2 Cold Bloods, Abyss, Sap. So that's at least 12 damage. There's 3 on the dagger, and there's 8 on board. That's 23. You're at 24. If your opponent finds 1 extra damage, which is easy, SI Agent, you are dead.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the Acidic Swampoo's can pull 3 of this damage off board.
Yep.
The Ragnaros will heal him back up to 30, and then you connect for 7 damage. None of these other cards really look that relevant.
Yeah.
He's gonna go with
for the taunt.
Yeah, don't blame him for the taunt here. I mean,
you know, I actually kind of don't like it. When you know your opponent has a sap left in their deck and they can guaranteed cycle to it, I mean, you see DarkGamin doing a lot of math right now.
I mean, Prelude might have counted up all the damage remaining
and realize maybe I can just lethal push.
The other thing too is Mage just
Gamin's
realized
going
there's
for
no reach.
He's
here,
using
but we're
the
gonna find
sap.
out. Backstab gets picked up. There's a Cold
We know
Blood.
there's got to be 2 Cold Bloods, but is that enough? I mean, the way I counted it up, that's going to be 16, 21. I think it's got to be enough. I think it's exact because of the spell power and the SI and the dagger. Yep, that's going to be 24 if I counted it correctly, and I think DarkGamin counted it too.
12, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Yep.
Yep, that's
exact lethal. Well played by DarkGamin. You saw him doing a lot of math going into this turn and immediately starting up. No roping, knows his damage, knows his limits, and
Literal
found a way.
Exact damage. I mean, that's crazy to think about when you put this in perspective. I mean, at 24, Prelude needed 1 extra life to live through this turn and take it.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of didn't like that Infested Torrent. You have to talk about there are 2 ways to kill that. Not only is there a sap, there's a backstab for free with spell power. I think that was a bit of an oversight by Prelude there, kind of overthinking that the taunt would kind of help. Didn't seem to help much. I would rather he healed for 6 and seen where the game went from there.
Yeah.
Still would have needed some help, but...
Well, the other thing too is if the Infested Torrent comes down to the Acidic Swampoo's, he can also expend the Forbidden Healing to just get that little bit of extra life.
Yeah.
That's a possibility as well. I mean, I mean, obviously felt safe at 24.
Yeah.
But just exact damage for lethal. So that's a win for DarkGamin, who now has Shaman and Rogue left to work with. I'm sorry, Shaman and Warlock left to work with versus Warlock and Paladin from Prelude.
And I got a feel for Prelude right now. The weak link you have is that Reno Warlock deck. Might have done a lot of success against other control decks, but when it comes to beating aggro, it is rough. You're going to need that Reno.
Yeah, you're going to need a lot of the early game tools as well. And again, the loss of Dark Bomb, it's not a joke. But as we've seen over and over again, Reno Warlock players always have Imp Gang Boss
on 3.
On turn 3.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't have to face up against Rogue. I feel like the Reno Warlock is a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, you can't feel too comfortable walking into Shaman and Zoo, but I mean, it's definitely doable. Like you said, he's just going to need to pick up the right sequence of cards, and I feel like if he can get that out of the way, Paladin is very doable against both Shaman and Zoo.
Yep. Pretty tight play so far from Prelude. You know, I would call that last one a little bit of a misstep. But again, I think he counted the amount of damage and maybe only accounted for 1 Cold Blood in that sequence.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's very easy to say when we're sitting here with all the info that that was a mistake. Of course, that's something you got to look back on and learn from.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. So game number 3 is going to be getting underway here shortly. Looks like it's going to be Warlock versus Warlock. Oh, maybe the Paladin instead. So as soon as we roll in here, we'll see how this matchup unfolds. Now Paladin versus, that is going to be Paladin versus Shaman. And I think this is the matchup that Prelude was probably looking for.
Well, we've seen this weekend that, you know, they're pretty close matchups. He'd probably want to hit the Zoo instead, but this has traditionally been around 50-50. Could go either way. Tunnel Trog obviously going to be a welcome sight for DarkGamin. I'm wondering if he wants to keep Doomhammer. He knows there's an Ooze in the deck, though.
The other thing, too, is with Tunnel Trog in your opening hand, is there ever a consideration for keeping that Ancestral Knowledge? I mean, that's a card you love to top deck once you've expended all your resources. So just gonna fish for more 2-drops, finds a Flame Juggler and a Feral Spirit, one of the premier opens for Shaman.
Yeah.
Second Solemn Vigil is not a welcome sight. Prelude's hand is looking slim pickings right now. If he picks up an Equality, he might be in good shape, but with Twilight Summoner, Stampede Kodo, and 2 Solemn Vigils, he doesn't have anything he can do.
The other thing is, I mean, the stats say it's around 50-50, but DarkGamin is running an aggressive build, and we've seen a lot of players favoring more of the mid-range, Master of Evolution, some of the more slower cards. He has Worgen Infiltrators.
This is going to be a massive turn for DarkGamin. I mean, here's the thing, though. He saw Quality Wild Pyromancer from this. In game number 1, we saw him play right into the brawl. He threw caution to the wind, said, you know what, you've got to have that card. And he's going to follow through on that thinking. And these are the reasons you make these kinds of plays. When your opponent doesn't have the clear for this, it's almost an automatic win.
Oh my god.
A quality off the top for Prelude. That's going to clear this whole board. This is, I mean, but this is the other side of this. If the board clears there, you're usually in pretty bad shape, and DarkGamin can't help but just smile. Wow, what a draw from Prelude.
Yep. Sometimes this is the way it goes. 2 Doomsayers as well. That's actually pretty big.
He drew 4 cards this turn because of 2
He drew 2, yeah. Wow. And nothing but Totem.
Well, when you're playing against Aggro Shaman, you're always hoping they totem.
And Doomsayer is going to throw. He could go for the Twilight Summoner. I really like the Doomsayer a lot more, though, because it's going to deny plays like Flame Wreath Faceless.
What about 2 Doomsayers here?
I'm okay with 1. Your opponent's never going to kill it.
It's a good point. I mean, if your opponent wants to kill, they preserve a totem. So there's not really any reason to do that.
They're never going to throw 7 damage into it. Earthshock plus Flame Wreath, I guess, would be the nightmare.
Yeah. The big reason I like Doomsayer here is because he doesn't have a Humility or an Aldor Peacekeeper right now. So if this Doomsayer goes off, he can actually buy his turn 5 by doing the same play as well.
Right.
And then roll straight to turn 6. It'll give 2 extra draws, and it'll stunt the development from DarkGamin.
Yeah, you can see why the Twilight Summoner would be a little too greedy.
Yeah.
You're going to let your opponent develop a 7/7 for free. You're going to pass up the Doomsayer here, and wow, this game just swung.
Yeah.
Like, you were talking about how Solemn Vigil was a terrible draw. Well, when you clear 5 minions,
It's pretty darn good.
it's the best card in your deck.
The Equality was the critical draw to that one. So he's just going to play Corrupted Healbot. Says this is enough contest.
Yeah,
For
it's not actually going to contest the 7/7, but looks like it's just going to be spreading wide here for DarkGamin and trying to push. I mean, Prelude is low, but the problem is if that Forbidden Healing's picked up, I mean, with Tyrion, maybe even Infested Torrent.
I'll tell you what, Infested Torrent's looking pretty darn good on this board.
I kind of like Kodo.
Yeah, I like Kodo too, but
yeah.
The point is he's got options.
Yep.
And over the course of
he
this
has
weekend,
plenty of options.
The player with options has always been the one that feels like they're favored in the game.
Yep.
So clear up this board quite nicely.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded him trading first. I feel like the 2/1 Divine Shield's actually harder for him to deal with than a 2/3 taunt.
Yeah, potentially.
It's going to take 2 attacks, which I don't think he has the freedom to do. That's a lot of burn.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 points.
50 is close. It didn't seem like it like a turn ago, but the past 3 draws have been burn spell, burn spell, burn spell.
Wild Pyromancer picked up.
And there's no actual healing.
Consecrate will clear this up with the Wild Pyromancer. Takes time to think. I mean, this is a tough turn.
Yeah, the other thing is Prelude's not pushing lethal.
Yeah, so it looks like it's going to be Consecrate. And, I mean, what do you couple with this? I mean, maybe just play the Wild Pyromancer afterwards? Both the minions getting cleared up here. like to see the attack first on that one to prevent that little bit of heal.
Yeah, right now, DarkGamin is going to be one-off lethal if he had the mana to cast all these and got a spell power totem.
It's a lot of stuff to do.
Well, starting turn 9, that's a 25% every turn to hit that.
Really just going to token up here.
Yeah, I think he realized he could have, oh my god, that's, I mean, right now that's it, right? That's 18, but there's a true silver. If he can roll a spell power totem, that's going to be game.
The other thing too is he needs to wait. He knows that Forbidden Healing's in this build. So if he expends this burn and then sees a Forbidden Healing, it's lights out. Now granted,
no
Forbidden Healing
power
is pretty bad regardless, but...
Well, I think he should throw a burst. I think he should throw one lava burst here. I think that's it. There's no Loath up. And I feel like you're playing your hand face up even if you do nothing. If you pass, you're saying, my hand is all spells.
No, it's 2 Doom Hammers and a Rock Biter.
Well, with Lava Shock, if you throw out the Lava Burst, you have exactly 7 mana of spells, so you have the 2 mana to get the spell power every turn, starting next turn.
Well,
so
he's going to overload too, but he has the Lava Shock to...
The Lava Shock would take off the overload, so good spot here by him. He could also throw a Bolt, but I don't see the point in that really. He's got the mana to expend and, you know, does come to that decision. Pretty happy to see that. And if it's Tyrion, that's game. If it's true silver, he'll stay alive. No.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't fault anyone for playing Tyrion in this spot, but you just see a Lava Burst, and maybe the hand's tipped off a bit. But DarkGamin back-to-back burn spell draws is going to end this game. Lava Shock, spell power totem or not, doesn't matter. Wow.
I mean, crackle or not, if you're going to draw all of your burn, you're going to get there. And this is the power of the Shaman deck.
Stealing games that look like they're otherwise lost. No action, plenty from hand though. So, 2-1 lead now for DarkGamin. He's got Warlock left to work with. And that's a Zoo Warlock versus Reno Warlock and Control Paladin. Feeling like a little bit of a weak link here, but you know, maybe 2 opportunities to potentially stay alive.
Yeah, even if your deck isn't favored, having 2 opportunities is a huge blessing. I mean, you're going to go in, no matter what, you are a favorite to win when you're up 2-1. You don't want to think about that too much. Still got to take it game by game, but both of these matchups definitely winnable for him.
Yeah, this isn't a tournament life on the line for either of these players either. This is the upper bracket right now, so either player who loses, they will drop down to the lower bracket and have a second chance still to move through that one.
I mean, what's on the line? The winner is going to move straight into the winner's bracket final. That means they're guaranteed top 3 at this event, guaranteed at least $700, guaranteed at least 5 Hearthstone Championship Tour points, which for these guys with none could be great.
Yeah. So still a lot on the line here as we get into our last game. We're going to find out what Prelude wants to queue up versus DarkGamin first. Either way, needs to win 2 games, one with each of his decks. They've carried him this far. I mean, it feels like Prelude is, I mean, you look at his body language, it seems like he's completely unfazed by some of the draws that DarkGamin's had at the later stages. Yeah,
I mean, good mentality to have. And I also think the fact that, you know, being in the winner's bracket does help.
Yeah.
Tournament life not quite on the line yet.
DarkGamin, on the other hand, he looks a little bit nervous to me.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of squeaking by on the seat of his pants,
exactly lethal. Definitely seems like the more emotional player here. Getting kind of laughing at just the draws that were happening to him, but still managing to persevere through that, get some good draws of his own.
Yep. Look at that Zoo opener.
Yeah, they're really good cards. The only issue is you can immediately see, you're like, all of these die to Consecration.
No, you can't think about it that way. And honestly, DarkGamin, I don't think he's going to be the kind of player who cares about that. He's going to go for it every single time, I think.
He has gone for it both times, and it's been good both times.
Look at that opening hand from Prelude. Doomsayer, it's one of the strongest 2 drops I think he can have.
Cannot clear it out with just the things on board here.
Or even Abusive Sergeant would be enough, yeah.
And that Doomsayer, it's going all over the place.
He knows what's coming.
Oh, yeah. barring a crazed alchemist top deck. Now, Zoo especially, I mean, you gotta view this as a 1-for-1. And life tap, if you have to hero power on 2, it's a good hero power to have.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much steady shot and life tap, I think, are two of the strongest pass turns you can have.
Solemn Vigil, pretty solid pickup. Gets casted for 2 mana.
Second Consecrate, a quality Kodo. Now, Corrupted Healbot in this matchup does feel a little bit weaker since your opponent's life tapping so much. So if that minion dies in combat just in the first turn it's down, it gives your opponent quite a few extra life taps over the course of the game.
Yeah, I think a big issue for the Paladin deck, though, is going to be how do you get efficiency out of this, especially against a deck that draws twice a turn? How do you make Consecration a 3-for-1, a 4-for-1? Because if you're just going 1-for-1, you are going to lose.
Just needs to buy that time to get to those bigger turns.
I mean, it looks like DarkGamin here is considering Direwolf. I didn't think the Forbidden Ritual looked too bad.
Yeah, I don't mind the Direwolf out either. I mean, you know, they're kind of similar plays. Maybe looking for Knife Juggler a couple with the Forbidden Ritual. Second quality, not really that big of a deal in this matchup. You know, once he draws the Wild Pyromancers, those become a lot better, but...
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know your opponent doesn't have Imp Gang Boss, so you kind of give up on the dream of hitting that next turn with Kodo. But you could just go for the Consecration. I mean, just clear out the board for now. Look to roll into your later turns. Passing feels weak.
I mean, one of the plays you have to be worried about right now is Defender of Argus.
Yeah.
Which is going to leave some power on board if you don't choose to Consecrate right now.
And it's also going to make the Consecration not able to clear next turn.
And your 5-drops have options. So if your opponent plays something bigger than a 2-power minion, you can play the Corrupted Healbot. They play something small and a single body, you got Kodo for it.
Yeah.
I feel like Consecrate is the play here. It's not very efficient, but it feels like it's okay.
Yeah, it feels like a very aggressive way to play. And I feel like Prelude's, you know, been favoring very slow, steady play, but you got to worry about your life total as well. I mean, if you just keep taking free damage now, not left with a very good turn 5. He's going to have to stabilize with the quality Consecration this game. He's got 2 of them, though.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a quality Consecration, Kodo on the turn before, it doesn't look too terribly appealing.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's good enough. I mean, it does contest the board quite nicely. Let's see how DarkGamin wants to play this one. Doesn't have an opportunity to trade now with that Abusive Sergeant. Unlike life tap. I mean, this may just be damage to base too. That Kodo's threatening a lot of value right now.
Yeah. Feels like he has to trade with it. But you also don't want to trade too much because you're basically just playing into the Paladin's game plan of getting to the late game.
So just 3 to face for now. Wild Pyro Equality. Thinking about Wild Pyromancer Consecrate as well. That
would clear the board.
Yep. That's probably a little bit better.
That would leave an Equality stranded in its hand.
Yep. Don't really mind this so much. You get to keep a 3-1 on board as well.
Yep, that is a big deal.
Token. I mean, those are
against.
Oh, wait a minute! Did you see that Death Rattle order?
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
I think Wild Pyro's been, you know, it actually has some weird interactions on this patch. I'm not sure if it's intended or not, but if it dies to a spell, it still goes off even. So.
Job's done.
Oh, it's gonna be Forbidden Ritual.
Oh God.
We've seen this one before.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not an efficient answer to this. If you Equality Consecrate, you're not happy. You're just like, 2 for 2.
Yeah. I mean, you are rolling into Ragnaros Lightlord next turn, so
yeah,
it does feel like an okay turn. He's gonna go for it. I mean,
I think this is really a consequence of him taking that extra damage earlier. He hasn't been able to find a spot to get down the Corrupted Healbot. Stuck with an Equality now, and he had to be afraid of rolling into True Silver plus Corrupted Healbot, which is much more efficient use of your mana.
I mean, there's just no other play. This card is way too good.
Yeah, it's an 8/8, and it's an 8/8 Armor Smith essentially. Like, what's your opponent gonna do?
You can't just ignore it.
It's very hard to ignore it.
All he needs, I mean, maybe that means True Silver Champion here. I'm sorry, Lay on Hands instead.
I mean, I like Ragnaros Light Lord.
It heals for 8, that's an 8/8.
Well, also next turn you're rolling into True Silver plus Corrupted Heal Bot, which is much more efficient use of your mana.
I mean, there's just no other play. This card is way too good.
Yeah, it's an 8/8, and it's an 8/8 Armor Smith essentially. Like, what's your opponent gonna do?
You can't just ignore it.
It's very hard to ignore it. I gotta feel like it's better than Lay on Hands, honestly.
You could tell that he feels uncomfortable versus Sea Giant. That's what this play feels like to me.
Yeah, I guess.
Brand Flame him!
How comfortable are you as a zoo slamming all your mana on a Sea Giant when your opponent has an 8/8 on the board and they have 4 cards in their deck that reduce your 8/8 to a 1/8?
Well, not very comfortable, but
see in this matchup, honestly, and how both players are playing. DarkGamin is the guy that's going for it every time, and Prelude is the guy that looks at his hand and thinks, man, I don't think I can win with this, and he's not willing to bluff.
It looks like we have a little bit of an admin issue here with DarkGamin. We'll get this cleared up soon.
The other thing to mention is willing to bluff.
It looks like we have a little bit of an admin issue here with DarkGamin. We'll get this cleared up soon.
The other thing to mention is Sea Giant can still come down.
This might have been a disconnect. So, looking like, we'll get an official word as soon as we can, but there is some sort of issue going on at the moment. So, you hate to see this happen in tournament play, but we're at the mercy of the software and of the technology. So, sometimes this just happens.
Yep. Unfortunate reality.
DarkGamin. I'm curious if he felt really favored in this game or felt like it was still pretty even. It seemed like it was still pretty even.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was down to a lot of draws there.
Yeah. I think so as well. Maybe Prelude's a little bit favored with just the amount of cards he had.
He did end up picking Aldor off the top there.
Yeah, I mean, the extra card draws
would have been a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, at 24 life too. Still a lot of play left in that one. Not a clear advantage, I think, to either player.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely if someone tells you you're going to have a regame, that's probably a game you're just like, okay.
Yeah, not feeling too bad about that one. So we'll get this cleared up as quickly as we can, and once we have an official wording, we'll relay it to you guys. But yeah, I think I agree with your analysis on this one too. What DarkGamin is kind of forcing the action from their opponent, and having played games like this for 20 years, the aggressor typically feels like they're a little bit favorite to me.
The thing I feel even with control decks is, so Prelude didn't have the answer, but sometimes you can just act like you do.
Yeah.
And just slam Rag and be like, go, and your opponent's afraid of you.
Having a lot of cards in your hand.
And when you lay on hands, that gives them like the green light of, he has nothing, he is desperate.
Yeah.
Now when you Rag, they're like, man, I don't even know if I want to play Sea Giant. What if he Aldors and trades and wins?
Then the Ragnaros Light Lord heals itself for 1.
That's fine.
Did get an official wording. It will be a regame. Same decks must be played in the regame, so we'll roll into that one as quickly as we possibly can for that. But yeah, I mean that's a thing to talk about. From competitive play, it's definitely a higher level concept.
I want my opponent to be scared. I want them to think I have it every time. I want to be sitting on 5 useless cards and them to make the worst play ever.
That's a tough thing to sell to some people. I know against me that's not going to work. I'm going for it.
Yeah, exactly. And see, that's the thing is you get to the level of top play, both players just start going for it every time. And honestly, that's a strategy I've seen Firebat use a lot. Is he's a guy that just plays his most powerful stuff every turn, and he'll tell you that. He'll be like, oh, "It's not that hard.
I just play my most powerful card, man."
This is a guy that's won like $200,000 playing Hearthstone, and you're like, "What's your secret?" And he's like, "What do you mean?
I just play my best card." It's a good card. They got to deal with it.
It's like turn 8, you're not slamming Rag? I'll slam either one.
Yeah, so it looks like these guys are ready to get in the game, so we'll have that as quickly as we can.
Well, we got a little treat of how the game might go. So we got a little look into
a preview of what we're in store for.
You guys know you're more well educated on the matchup now. You can see it's pretty close.
Yeah. Honestly, it comes down to board clears, I think. And that's like really a big deal. So, I mean, if you get those big board clears, you can find yourself in some really favorable spots. But, you know, without them, you're going to have to fight for the board every single step of the way. Choose over champion, you know, it gains some health, but it is putting some pressure on your life total. Stampede Kodo costs 5 mana. Infested Torrent is not going to match up well versus the Defender of Argus. A lot of those things come into play. I mean, when you don't draw the perfect, you know, we've talked about this before too. It's really easy to win a game when you get the right cards. You have all the answers and you curve out really well. But what about when you have the below average hands? What do you do with kind of the ragtag crew? That's a lot of what decides the champions, is the players who can make the most of what they're dealt.
Yep. And I'm a little surprised to see Wild Pyromancer thrown away. Prelude may be digging deep for a Doomsayer. Is a very important 2-drop to have now that Iron Beak Owl's not really a thing.
Yeah, I mean, at 3 mana, that card is
not being played at all.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing Spellbreaker favored over Iron Beak Owl when players want to go for a silence. Pretty good early start for DarkGamin here. Twilight Summoner, I really like this card in the slower matchups, but in the kind of board-centric ones, that card has been a little bit weak. I mean, the fact that it takes 2 turns to get online.
Yep. You don't want to be playing things your opponent can ignore.
Yeah, especially not versus the aggro decks.
Yeah, against Zoo, you want them to be trading in your guys. So things like Infested Torrent, even if your opponent has efficient trades.
Brand is looking really good here.
It's definitely threatening. Also just a 2-4 for 3, not bad.
It's the juggle, and the assault begins. I mean, this is almost certainly a coin true silver turn.
You're not feeling good about that.
No, you're
because
not.
If there's an Argus, that's lights out.
So DarkGamin, I mean, doesn't have an Argus right now, but if he draws a Defender of Argus, there is a good chance he's going to win this game.
Yeah. I would assume you would Defender of Argus both just to push the damage. Be fine if your opponent True Silver is your 4/4 juggler.
Instead, it's the old Brand Flame Imp combo. That Corrupted Healbot's going to heal you right back up. Yeah,
honestly, yeah.
You just go for it. The thing about it is DarkGamin is...
I like how he realized. I don't think he knew, and then he's like, oh, man.
Dang it,
Bran.
Come on, Bran. You know, when you're out there exploring, it's a dangerous world.
It's just a worse infested grub.
Potential for an almost full clear here. Will use a True Silver Champion, not a surprise. Is going to consecrate as well, pull this Knife Juggler forward.
So sad he can't cast the Solemn Vigil.
Yeah, and normally looking at this spot, you may look at DarkGamin's hand and think this is going to be pretty strong with the reload with the Forbidden Ritual here. Well, Darkshire Councilman's definitely going to change that.
You're looking to make him a 7/5 next turn. He's rolling into Kodo, though. It's a 50-50.
In that case, do you Forbidden Ritual to protect it?
I probably wouldn't.
Just go for the big guns.
Yeah.
So do you life tap first then? Yeah. Good. Gormok, a nice pickup too.
This seems like roughly what I do. I mean, now if I'm Prelude and I have the Kodo, I'm going for it every time.
Yeah. Doomsayer gets picked up. That's a trap right now.
Yeah. Doomsayer would get exactly cleared out. Of course, that would mean that no tap could come out from DarkGamin.
You know, Forbidden Healing has some pretty interesting interactions with Wild Pyromancer. The fact that you can clear so many 1/1s, and then also set your health to a high total and keep a 3/1 on board.
Yep.
Pretty good stuff. So no Sea Giant going to be played this turn, but this is a rough one, honestly.
Yeah, he can't quite clear out that Corrupted Healbot.
Well, you can Forbidden Ritual for 5 and trade in.
I'm not trading. You trading?
I'm not trading either. I'm saying if he wants to clear.
Yeah, I'm saying he can't quite clear with the PO. That's the unfortunate part.
Looks like he just wants to Ritual for 6 though, so putting a damage into the Healbot and then just getting the extra, getting extra power on the Councilman.
Well, yeah, it gives you the exact same result, just 1 extra damage on the Healbot. Not a big deal.
Plus you get to make a ton of tentacles.
Yeah.
This just looks cooler.
Hey, that's kind of rude to the Shadow Beast.
The old implosion for 6.
Doesn't play around BGH.
He's thinking about trading here. I mean, honestly, we talked about this earlier too, knowing that there's 2 Humilities and 2 Aldor Peacekeepers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where bluffing comes in. This is sort of the spot I was looking at with the Ragnaros, is when you have an 8-8 and your opponent has an 8-8, but your deck has Humility.
That's a heal for 8 and a board clear for Prelude.
Do you kill off your Pyro? I don't think you do. It's pretty valuable.
I think you do.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah. Unlucky.
Never lucky.
Well,
All right.
Elven Archer.
Elvish Archer.
Not quite Mortal Coil, but
It draws a 1/1 onto the board.
yeah, I don't play Wisp in my deck. I mean, some people do. Some people are just really good deck builders, and they put 4 Wisps in their decks.
Yep. Wacky builds. Gotta love those wacky builds. Occasionally they win and you look like a genius.
Wacky.
Now here, I do like the PO and trade here.
Yes.
Because this opens Sea Giant. And you
Those
take a
Sea
look
Giants need to come down.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at some of the earlier situations that DarkGamin was in, it wouldn't have made any sense to trade with Doomsayer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good sequence here.
Okay.
If I have made this mistake before. This exact mistake.
I saw him like take a breath, and I'm like, oh, okay, he caught himself.
Ooh, Sylvanas gets drawn. Tyrion and Sylvanas both available.
Both great.
I'm thinking kill the 2/2 play Tyrion.
Put
Here.
Tyrion.
Yeah, I mean, this
Zoo doesn't
roots.
play Knife Juggler. The second Knife Juggler would need to be picked up. Or a second Elven Archer.
Yeah, spots the play as well. Just a powerful threat.
This is looking pretty brutal for DarkGamin right now.
I mean, maybe there's a copy of Spellbreaker in here, but I'm thinking this is second Sea Giant. Like, you just got to get something on board and hope it sticks.
That's rough.
Maybe looking to protect the Sea Giant as well. I mean, now this...
I kind of like just we're going to wrap up this game.
Yeah, we'll harvest Golem. Yeah, instead of taunting our 5/5s, we would taunt our 1/1s and our 2/1s. We're like, you got to attack these crappy minions.
Yeah, it's going to be an efficient way to pop the Divine Shield, which is, I think, what DarkGamin should be worried about right now.
God, if only you could see what's behind Prelude's hand.
It's not good stuff.
Not for DarkGamin.
Yeah, man, that Bloodfin Raptor is going to wrap up this game.
Yeah, we'll taunt up the Imp Gang boss instead. Maybe both of them get taunted up.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah, I like to taunt just on the Imp Gang boss. Protect the Sea Giant as much as you can. It's going to need to crash through Tyrion. And go from there. Stampeding Kodo. I mean, Sylvanas Twilight Summoner is looking like an awfully good turn.
He doesn't have the mana.
Oh, it's right. Sylvanas doesn't cost 5 anymore. I'm
Yeah.
crazy.
You are kind of crazy.
Yep. I think if you're going to Kodo, you definitely Kodo first. You
Yeah,
want
of
the 2/3
course.
off the board.
So you can Kodo and Summoner. Could go for the Solemn, but okay.
We'll go for the Solemn.
Looking for answers, I suppose. If he picks up Humility, not quite.
It's going to be the second Sea Giant, but...
Kind of relegated to that Faceless Summoner not being very good for the rest of the game.
This is actually kind of a really good turn for DarkGamin here. He gets to taunt up those little guys as we were talking about, get a second Sea Giant on board.
Yeah.
Start punching through. Yeah,
But
yeah, no, seems good.
we're one Equality Activator away from disaster.
You know, you got to take what you can get.
Yep. And for Prelude, that might be Lay on Hands being what he can get. He could go for Aldor, Sylv, though.
Sylvanas is just...
It's going to be hard to get her off.
Yeah.
With the taunt.
You know, I think you still go for it in this spot. You're, you know, you're taking some damage
It
here.
essentially heals you for 7.
You got some pretty good. You have some pretty good comfort zone here because you can use the Kodo to clear one of these minions. You can take a little bit of damage clear off the Divine Shield.
It's
Set up
also just
Sylvanas to
equality.
attack in that 8-2. I mean, yeah, quality.
You can always equality your own Sylv to take something guaranteed.
Yeah. I like Eldor Sylvanas. Just a strong board. I mean, at this point, the tension is built on the board. You don't have a way to necessarily stop this.
Yeah.
So just build what you can.
Oh, it might be lay on hand because of that attack. No.
I don't think you can afford to eat 16 damage
Yeah.
with the Sea Giants. That's just too much.
I agree. So he's going to hold back the healing. This is more efficient just in the long run.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Problem is, I mean, Silva's going to take something.
Yeah, this is looking much worse.
Trade with Sylvanas straight up. Let it take a 2-2. Kill the 2-2.
I don't like it.
Go for a long. I don't like it either. I like going for it.
I think he has to. I mean, this is the last hurrah. I feel like.
It's unlucky. Have to see how. Kill the 2-2.
I don't like it.
Go for a long. I don't like it either. I like going for it.
I think he has to. I mean, this is the last hurrah. I feel like.
It's unlucky. Have to see how he decides to do it.
I like the play.
Face, face,
Yep.
face.
Wait.
This is an important attack to make face. Yeah,
Yeah.
he needs that extra damage so that he has Doomguard +2 as an out.
Second equality's no good.
So how do you begin cleaning up this board? He gets a guaranteed steal. It's just a matter of what do you want to steal? Gonna start with lay on hands.
Humility's a nice pickup. I mean, now, oh, and Zoth joins the hand. So Kodo into the 3-2. You can put Sylvanas into the Sea Giant. Take a look at your steal. Humility, the biggest minion afterwards. Everything you have right now is contesting everything except the Darkshire Councilman. So maybe instead you attack the Kodo in here, or the Eldor Peacekeeper. I don't think it really matters too much. You equality, kill the...
So one minion's going to be left alive for DarkGamin, no matter what.
Just so many different good plays here. Looks like that Ashbringer maybe pointed at that Darkshire Councilman.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
This is a big cleanup here. DarkGamin has no cards in hand.
He's just going for the 50-50, wants the max chance of taking the 1-8.
I think this one's done.
Yeah, I mean, with the taunt coming behind this.
Not the mightiest of taunts, but
It's enough to stop a
I'll
Doomguard.
tell you what, N'Zoth for the Tyrion and the Sylvanas is looking pretty darn good.
Protects me.
I think
don't
it's just
know.
enough.
You do want to be safe.
I think that N'Zoth for Tyrion and Sylvanas is pretty safe.
Yeah, but
He can clear up the board too. I mean, kill all the threats.
he'd be dead to Doomguard PO. Is there really a...
No, you have a Tyrion down.
Oh, he played Tyrion this game.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just an idiot.
You're
Yeah.
just dumb.
Yeah, you N'Zoth here. The one true god.
It's so good. Full board clear. And hang on.
Even gonna get into that 1-1 Divine Shield.
Why not?
Trump would be proud.
He lets him Solemn Vigil.
Oh yeah, for 0.
There's N'Zoth.
Oh,
So
the
powerful.
triumvirate.
That's going to do it. DarkGamin, no answer to this one. Prelude, forcing game number 5. On the board with Paladin, it's now Reno Warlock versus Zoo Warlock. Prelude on that Reno Warlock build. We've seen him brought 3 control decks. And as I mentioned before, Prelude looking like he's just totally fine with what's happening. DarkGamin, a little bit stressed, I'd say.
Now, I've got some stats on the Warlock versus Warlock. We're at a stellar 50%.
Whoa! We don't have individual
okay, they're different
archetypes.
archetypes, yeah.
We don't have archetype percentages,
And jokes aside.
but Reno Warlock has traditionally struggled with this matchup quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it not only that, but
Darkshire Councilman.
it lost a lot of gas in this matchup. Antique Healbot's gone, Sludge Belcher's gone, Dark Bomb's gone. And I think those are 3 of the biggest ones you lose.
So big things to look for. Mortal Coil, just efficient. Doomsayer, I believe, would be in that Reno Lock build. And if he can pick that one up, it's going to go a long way towards getting him to the later turns. And I mean, of course, you have to talk about Reno Jackson. That is the literal one card. It's the best card in the deck.
Yeah.
Now, it's not always going to save you against Zoo because you still have to eventually take back the board, but it's going to give you time to get to Twisting Nether, to get to Shadow Flame turns. But, yeah, a lot of power lost from that Reno Lock deck. Prelude's still rolling with it for this tournament, and he hasn't dropped a match yet. So that deck is finding wins.
This is such a good one to see, too. I mean, the only 2 players in the top 8 was Reno Warlock, Prelude and Fibonacci. And on broadcast matches, we saw Fibonacci's Reno Warlock struggle quite a bit. And when I say quite a bit, I mean the deck went 0-3 in his match. It was the weak link in that match for him.
And I think moving forward, I mean, unless we find significant headway in creating some crazy Reno Lock build, from what I've heard from professional players that have been testing these decks out, Reno Lock's probably not going to be the Warlock build of choice. Unless the metagame shifts. I mean, Patron Warrior picking up steam. Reno Lock's got a pretty solid match against that.
Yeah.
Hellfire, Shadow Flame, Nether.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest tool I feel like that Patron has versus Reno Warlock is with Core Crown Elites, you can kind of force their life total down.
You're more of an aggro deck.
And going into their Reno turn, you drop Falling Berserker. And so when they Reno, you're threatening lethal with just all your whirlwind effects. And like that's where I've had the most success with Grim Patron versus Reno Lock. But that's hard to predict sometimes because going into their Reno turn, sometimes you drop Falling Berserker and they just Shadow Flame you.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are kind of some missteps you can take in that matchup. And with the loss of Deathspite, you lost a lot of your reach. I mean, that card typically dealt 8 damage in that matchup and was an enabler effect as well. And so not having both of those tools, I think, can put it at a disadvantage. I mean, I think one of the strongest things you could do at this point is Finley into the life tap.
Yeah, of course. We'll be seeing plenty of Patron Warrior later. 7 Warriors in this top 8. Of course, we know 2 are Control, but there's Reno.
Right off the bat. You know, I've heard professionals talk about this before, too. The card that you play this deck for is Reno Jackson. You keep it in every single matchup.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
It's pretty weird.
Maybe not Warrior.
It's pretty weird to keep a 6-cost card.
If you don't know if it's Patron or Control, you'll keep it.
Yeah. It's going to go coin Dark Peddler here. This will enable Abusive Sergeant next turn as well as Flame Imp.
Jouster's probably not going to go off when you have a Sea Giant in hand to begin with. Not to mention your deck's just kind of low curved.
Matched. The Dark Peddler. Same. We need that same emote. What if he even took tournament attendee? Same.
What if he takes a tournament attendee? God, I wanted it to happen.
Tentacle is off.
It's not a
too
bad
shabby,
card.
yeah.
Yep.
Really good versus Forbidden Ritual, that's for sure.
That is definitely something that's going to match up well.
We'll be the attendee to absorb that Dark Peddler hit. And then start pushing a little bit of damage here. Turn 3 is actually just going to trade, so
kind of interesting.
Doesn't want to be open to Mortal Coil and trade into the Flame Imp.
Yeah. I do like pushing damage, though.
Yeah, this will almost... I'm curious if you can ever justify holding the Tentacle in his off for a Hellfire turn.
Just get that extra 1. It's like a Mortal Coil
it will
on
kill
everything.
Brands at that point. You know, it'll take care of Imp Gang Boss pretty nicely.
It forces a trade here, so that's kind of nice.
Yep, I imagine this will be followed. Forbidden Ritual looking pretty good here. Now, something that's really interesting to note is that before, your token spawner made imps, which couldn't be killed by Demon Wrath. This spawns icky tentacles, which can be killed by Demon Wrath.
Yeah. It's definitely
I think you
big
go for
deal.
a ritual here.
Of course, Flame Imp gonna survive a Demon Wrath, so.
We've seen Prelude kind of use his AoE very liberally in matchups so far. Ooh, Doomsayer's nice pickup.
Yeah, Doomsayer's definitely an interesting one when he can fit that in to regain tempo on the board. If you can find a turn to get that off, that is huge.
take his time. Hellfire, Demon Wrath. I mean, it's pretty rare that you find this many options, I think, for a control deck.
Also just Twilight Drake.
Yeah, Twilight Drake is looking okay here too. Extra 6 health.
Yeah, would be vulnerable to it because I don't see a turn coming where he's going to be able to just get that on the board. It might act as a heal 7, but I much prefer it. Okay.
This is
works
fine too, yeah.
Got more clears in your deck.
And this will be second Forbidden Ritual, but that's met by Demon Wrath. And Demon Wrath into Doomsayer.
Very big, yeah.
Demon Wrath into Doomsayer is a scary turn right now.
Especially when you're following up with tap Twilight Drake at worst.
I mean, Demon Wrath tap is totally fine here too, I think.
I'd really like to see him get the Doomsayer down because I don't see a turn coming where he's going to be able to just get that on the board. It might act as a heal 7, but I much prefer it. Okay.
This
works
fine too, yeah. I mean, this forces, at the very worst, this is a game 7 spell.
All right, so I think we're definitely going to see him extend into it, and this might be exactly where he was looking to put DarkGamin.
Missing the 2 juggles here would be disaster. Hits the first one. And that's going to be the Ardent Squire on board as well.
He's going to choose to go with the 1-drop.
I'll tell you what, Demon Wrath's looking a lot better here.
Yeah, I might have preferred Voidwalker because of Demon Wrath.
Ardent Squire still lives through.
Yeah, but still removes the Divine Shield. And I think you just go for the Kodo.
Just nailed the juggler.
Hey, you got him.
Yeah, 1 draw away from that Imp King boss and Demon Wrath this turn. But clearing your opponent's board down to a 1/1's got to feel good. Second Knife Juggler's a good pickup.
Yep, it's got to be a big...
2 Voidwalkers behind. This is going to enable Sea Giant almost certainly next turn.
Only 2 more clears in Prelude's deck, unless he's jamming a copy of Doom in there.
Alex Raza and Jiraxis.
And are we at the turn where you have to Reno?
I mean, you're staring down 5 points of damage, so I don't think it's necessarily a have to Reno turn.
Yeah, but that...
Reno's a very clean play. Defender of Argus. I'm sorry, Imp King Boss Defender of Argus is also very clean.
Now...
Even just Imp King Boss Twilight Drake. I'm sorry, Twilight Drake Imp King Boss.
Yeah. One thing, though, is you don't get the Reno down when you can. You can be forced into spots where you don't want to and you have to.
Yeah, and that's a big thing to think about when you're playing Reno decks is the timing of this. I mean, sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit of the value to make sure that you can have better turns afterwards. Yeah. So like if he plays it this turn, it means that he can Siphon Soul a big threat.
Yep.
If he doesn't play Reno this turn, he's not going to be able to Reno and Siphon Soul a big threat. So those are 2 very different kinds of turns.
Like imagine he goes with minions and DarkGamin plays 2 Sea Giants.
Yeah, I mean, that would be disaster. Your opponent only does have 1 card in hand, so that would be kind of gin for them. But you have a card draw to do it.
I was really looking forward to that Sea Giant.
Yeah, so, will be Defender Sea Giant, but not a good way to push through this Imp King boss, I think.
He can like tap, buff up those Voidwalkers, attack into the Imp King boss, make some imps, and then play the Sea Giant for like 1 or 0.
I think that's what he's eyeing.
Get the extra card, maybe get another minion. There's another minion. You know the clears are gone. He is extending wide. So is the Imp King boss, but might like to see him clear off a 1/1 to protect the juggler. But like we were talking about, now you're forced into a spot where you have to go tap Reno. And he's gonna push. Might like to see him clear off a 1/1 to protect the juggler. But like we were talking about, now you're forced into a spot where you have to go tap Reno. Or no, just gonna go with Siphon Soul. I mean, yeah.
The thing about
safe.
The one thing we've seen about Prelude 2 is been very conservative with his giant life gain spells.
Well, 14 isn't necessarily safe to 3 cards, but when your opponent has to go runner on you, you're pretty happy.
Yeah. Trade to protect the Flame Imp or just 2 to face. Yeah, protect. And
so, interesting to note, Prelude is running that double 9-drop, but also combo list. So we're getting to the point where DarkGamin's going to be threatened by Leroy PO or Leroy Faceless every step of the way.
Yeah, it's going to be Reno this turn. Back to 30, and DarkGamin's got a lot of work to do from this point.
Yep. And unfortunately,
it's a trap right now. There's a big game hunter that just joined Prelude's hand.
not only that, there's a BGH Kodo. Now, Possessed Villager could deal with that, but it has to be your play though. You're not gonna not play Sea Giant. It's unfortunate your opponent's running Big Game Hunter and has it. Here we go, 50. Oh, no, doesn't go for the Kodo.
Yeah, just the 4-9, I mean, just a 4-9 Drake.
Yeah, no big deal.
All he's got to do is crush the resources, and even with 8 power on board, the assault has kind of begun here, and 2 fairly weak draws for DarkGamin.
He's got 7 from hand, so that's game. Pio Jiraxis for the game.
That's actually right. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So all he's got to do is spot this. I mean,
and that's the series.
Yeah.
Reno Lock pulls through. Oh, well.
Leroy!
Don't have to spot Leroy off the top there.
That's an easy one for Prelude. Taking the series 3 games to 2.